Well, g'day everybody. Here is a video with pharmacist Ben Fuchs and Dr. Joel Wallach. If you find this information interesting, you want to purchase a product or get started with a business, click on these links and get started. And I am personally here to help you if you want to do that. My name is Jamel. I'm a 2-star executive with Youngevity International and work with Dr. Wallach and have a good product knowledge and can help you out whether you want to be a customer or part-time distributor or a bit more and get a good passive income. Hope you enjoy it. Here it is.
In pharmacy school, a lot of people don't realize this, but we study a little bit about nutrition, but we study nutrition in terms of how nutrients are medicines, and we study how diseases are deficiency diseases. So this is one of the reasons why I connected with you so well, because this is your message. We're not sick, we're starving. Many of the things that we consider to be diseases, heart disease, diabetes, the things we die from in this country, are really nutritional deficiencies at their core. And what I like to tell people is, at the point of death itself, we don't die of what it says on our death certificate. We die because some tissue system somewhere, some organ system somewhere is not being fed. So we literally die of nutritional deficiencies. And in pharmacy school, I was studying how vitamin A was connected to vitamin A deficiency was connected to night blindness, and vitamin C deficiency is connected to circulatory problems. And on the other hand, I was studying how prescription drugs were toxic and how they had side effects. I remember one time we watched a movie on beta blockers. These are drugs that stop the heart from working in order to lower blood pressure. And this was a movie put out by Ayers for their new drug Indoral, and it was going to revolutionize the hypertension business. And I remember the movie was an hour long, 15 minutes about how revolutionary their drug was, and 45 minutes was some guy reading the side effects of the new drug. 45 minutes, I'm telling you, reading the side effects. So I got the idea that we got a real big problem in this country in terms of healthcare. And the more I studied, the more I got into it, the more I realized that if we could just get nutrients in the hands of people, if we could just get people to start taking nutritional supplementation, we could do a lot of good. So I started practicing in my pharmacy using essential fatty acids to help people with their skin, essential fatty acids to help women with their menstrual cramps, B vitamins to help lower blood pressure, and lo and behold, as I'm sure you know, the results were tremendous. So from the get-go almost, I realized as a young pharmacist that we could be using nutritional supplements instead of using medicines, and we could be helping a heck of a lot more people, and we could be saving a lot of money on top of that. And your story is very interesting, how you started with nutritional supplementation. Now, I started, it was already the 1980s, so it was there were already people who were understanding that vitamin C and the B complex and essential fatty acids and minerals were very important. But when you were working with nutrients, we're talking about the 1940s. Vitamins were only really discovered 20 years before by mainstream science. So for you to get on board, you had to be quite the visionary. I wonder if you could maybe tell the viewers a little bit about what went through your synapses to make you realize, hey, there's something out there that we could be using to help take care of what people are considering diseases, people are considering genetics, genetic maladies, people are considering birth defects, but really are nothing more than nutritional deficiencies.
Well, it actually started when I was 4 years old. I had a disease that would be called today Tourette syndrome. They didn't have a name for it back then, but it's Tourette syndrome. And I had facial tics, and blink my eyes, and I'd get facial cramps, and it progressed. It got worse every year. By the time I was 9 years old, I'd go into a tetany and fall over, and my friends, my peers, my age group, classmates would say I was possessed, and they could bump me around and give me a bear hug and cause me to go into this tetany. And so I started complaining to my mom, and she took me to an eye doctor for some reason, who's an MD eye doctor, and they examined me and said, can't find anything wrong with him, except he's got very long eyelashes that are hitting his glasses, curling back and tickling his eyeballs. That's what's setting this off.
They thought that was what he tried to say, that was causing the tetany.
That's right. And so I'm 9 years old, and I'm not buying it. And I said, no, that can't be my eyelashes tickling my eyeballs. It's too much of a systemic problem. I didn't use the word systemic, but my whole body was affected, so I didn't believe it was just my eyes. So the next morning I went to the library in school, and I went and found a nurse's health handbook and looked for long eyelashes and eyelid twitches and that kind of stuff, and couldn't find anything. So I just went into the index and just started A, and I got down to cramps. I said, well, maybe it's a cramp, because I was playing sports and 9 years old, and I said, well, I've heard of leg cramps and things. And so I looked it up in the book, cramps, and said it was a calcium deficiency. Well, before the bus would pick me up to go to school every morning, I would feed our calves we were going to take to the auction this little bag full of alfalfa pellets, but it had a little analysis tag on it, and I'd read the analysis tag. It talked about protein and fiber and calcium. And so I went home that day after school, ran right to the barn, started eating these calf pellets. Tasted like sawdust, but hey, I had a problem. I was going to get rid of it. Next morning, I threw the Cheerios out to the chickens. I filled that cereal bowl up with the calf pellets, put milk on it. I did it for 3 days. By the third day, it was gone.
Forever.
Forever.
Wow.
And of course, I've been taking the 90 essential nutrients twice a day since I was 9 years old, 64 years.
So what went through your head as a young boy when you're taking these things that are for the calves, and all of a sudden you're this movement disorder that must have been traumatic for you as a kid?
Well, it was.
What went through your head? You thought it was a miracle?
Well, I thought it was one of those eureka moments because I understood something that doctors didn't. I recognized immediately that doctors didn't know anything about nutrition when I was 9 years old. And I don't know if that was a divine appointment or what, but I do know that I realized then at 9 years of age that doctors really didn't know much about that sort of thing. And I didn't realize that I was going to get into it as a profession, but I knew that I could help myself and I could help my mom and my grandmom and that kind of stuff. And so I began to do more reading on nutrition, and I began to mix chicken food with the calf pellets and dog food, and I was making my own little meatloaf and things. And
as a 9-year-old boy?
As a 9-year-old boy. By the
Wow.
time I was 18, I really had it figured out, and went to agricultural school at the University of Missouri. Halfway through ag school, applied for veterinary school, got accepted. My revelation, if you will, back when I was 9 years old, that diseases could be caused by nutritional deficiency, I learned everything I could about nutrition. Of course, in agriculture school, we learned that we could prevent and cure as many as 900 different diseases in animals with nutrition that in medical school they tell them are genetic.
Did you know that it was really a nutritional, an epigenetic component, that the nutrition was actually changing the genes?
Yes, well, no, we didn't have the word epigenetic at that time.
Nutrition was changing the genes, though, that the lack of nutrition was affecting the genetics?
And now that's a better word, affecting. Okay, they weren't changing the genes.
Affecting.
Affecting, because the genes are like a factory. The chromosomes are like a factory. Can you build anything in a factory without raw materials or parts?
No.
Without laborers and energy?
Of course not. No.
Okay, so a gene and a chromosome is the same way. It's just a blueprint.
Right.
A gene and a chromosome is just a blueprint,
right.
Nothing else. So you
right.
put a gene and a chromosome in a bucket of saline and say, okay, come on, boys, go to work and make something. Ain't nothing happening.
Right.
You still
the gene
need...
that makes protein, the blueprint is just there to make the protein. You still need the raw materials to make the protein.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we learned in agricultural school that we could prevent and cure every disease you can think of. We can prevent and cure, well, let's see, we can prevent every birth defect. Many of them you could cure. Some of them, like cleft palate's a surgical case, right? And for instance, congestive heart failure, the most common cause of heart disease, a death in adults in America, it's a deficiency of a single vitamin. In 1980, it was 1 out of 150,000 kids had autism. In the year 2000, it's 1 out of 150. Today, it's 1 out of 88 is the new, it just came out last week.
Wow.
1 out of 88 now has autism.
Wow.
And basically, when I was a kid, all 4 of my grandparents were from Eastern Europe. They were beet farmers and beef farmers. And so for breakfast, I would have cheese and beets and beef and eggs and...
No Cheerios?
No.
No cornflakes?
No. Not when I was a little baby, no. And we didn't have those types of diseases. Well, here comes now, 20 years later, kids are being fed on these box cereals full of processed carbohydrates with sugar on it, and they're getting apple juice.
Right.
How can you build a brain which is 2/3 by weight, 75% by weight, is cholesterol and good fats? Okay, and so now all they're getting is carbohydrates and sugar, and they're going crazy.
Right. So not only are they deficient, but it's costing them nutrients to process all that stuff.
Exactly. So it makes the nutritional deficiencies worse.
Even worse, right?
Right. And so simply, I take kids that haven't spoken in 11 years. You start feeding them eggs, you get them on the 90 essential nutrients, which is what we feed animals, the 90 essential nutrients, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 essential amino acids, 3 essential fatty acids. And after 11 years of not speaking, I have kids who can read the Bible out loud in churches.
That's awesome. And you know what, Doc, I say this on my radio show all the time. I say, you're going to think it's a miracle, but it's not a miracle. This is the way the body works, because you give the body what it needs and it will respond, this amazing system. My favorite mineral, you know, in the world of nutrition, you get favorites, right? You probably have your favorites, and
Sure.
I know one of them that's one of my personal favorites, and I know is one of yours, is selenium. So tell us a little bit about selenium, this incredible, incredible mineral, and some of the things that you can use it for. And I want you to play special attention on how selenium is involved with the thyroid, how selenium is involved with diabetes, and all the different things that you can use with this incredible mineral that, by the way, is active in microgram quantities, the tiniest of quantities. Maybe touch on that a little bit.
Okay, as you say, selenium is one of those wonderful trace minerals, which is an essential nutrient. We need it. We can't live without it. And it has many functions. It's a structural mineral when it comes to chromosomes, right? Epigenetics, we'll get into that, right? But it's a structural piece in the actual normal double helix.
Is it one of the fingers that you were talking about?
It's one of the metallic fingers that keeps this double helix of the chromosome in the proper distance of each other. There's a little strut there. In the middle of these struts, there's all these different minerals, and selenium is one of them.
Wow. So the helix itself is an incredibly organized structure, and every little component of it is key. The distance that the nucleotides are from each other, all that is tightly regulated, and minerals like selenium are involved in making sure that this structure stays intact. That's what the fingers are.
Exactly. And when you have a deficiency of selenium, many things happen. In the biochemical level, you can't recycle glutathione, which is one of the most potent antioxidants made by the body.
The most, maybe.
And it's used to protect you from cancer and fend off inflammation in your arteries so you don't get clogged arteries and that kind of stuff. But if you don't have enough selenium, you use one molecule of glutathione and it sort of deactivates. But when you have selenium, you can recycle that one molecule of glutathione 1,000 times.
That's awesome.
That's very awesome. And then it protects your brain from MS. When you have MS, you have a terrible, terrible selenium deficiency because it allows the free radical damage to the myelin, the white matter of the brain again, and you get these lesions in the brain about the size of a lima bean that cause MS.
So supplementing with selenium
Can prevent or reverse MS.
Wow.
Along with the 90 essential nutrients. It can't not by itself.
That's right. So 200 micrograms to 400 micrograms?
Well, I like to be a little heavy-handed.
600?
I like to be a little heavy-handed.
800?
A milligram, yeah.
A milligram?
1,000 micrograms. Yeah.
Okay.
When you have these diseases, you need to use a bigger hammer, right?
Okay.
HIV. You can prevent HIV from mutating to AIDS by supplementing with selenium.
Wow.
1 milligram a day. What's the difference between Arthur Ashe, the great black tennis player, and Magic Johnson, the great black basketball player? One is dead, one's alive.
Yeah.
One's supplementing with selenium, one didn't.
Is that that's what Magic Johnson's doing? Oh, that's interesting.
Dr. Gerhard Strauser, a grand man, he's the guy who discovered that selenium is an essential nutrient back in 1957.
They didn't consider it essential back then.
No, they considered it poison.
That's
exactly,
right,
they thought it was a poison. Even medical doctors today still think it's a poison.
Yeah.
But it actually was discovered to be an essential nutrient. And the disease he was looking at was liver necrosis, the death of your liver. If you survived death of your liver, you got cirrhosis of the liver, right? And this is all caused by not drinking, because 99% of the people who get liver cirrhosis never took a drink of alcohol in their life.
Right.
It's a selenium deficiency.
Wow.
I get people off the liver transplant list all the time.
Wow.
Some
And that's
of
a big problem today, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's a huge problem.
Fatty liver,
Yeah.
primary sclerosing cholangitis, liver cirrhosis.
Yeah.
I've had people, pharmacists, who've had 32 liver operations at Harvard Medical School. Their livers are the size of an Oreo cookie, and I rebuild them in 2 months to a normal liver, just using the 90 essential nutrients and extra selenium.
Right.
Okay. And then there's cataracts are caused by selenium deficiency and free radical damage, eating fried foods, free radical damage to the lens of the eye, and no selenium to protect it. And then you get cardiomyopathy of heart disease. I've done
Keyshawn syndrome.
Keyshawn syndrome, yeah.
right.
I've done 1,200 autopsies on kids under the age of 10 in Keyshawn province, China. 1,200 autopsies. Nobody else has ever done that.
They're all deficient.
They're all deficient in selenium. And partially because of our work there in China, every school kid, when you go to kindergarten, they get a multiple and a capsule of selenium. We've wiped out cardiomyopathy of heart disease in children in China.
That's awesome.
Is that awesome?
That's awesome. How about for the thyroid?
The thyroid gland, of course, there's actually a syndrome called Wilson syndrome. The question is, how many nutrients does your thyroid require?
A lot, probably. Not.
All 90.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask a physician, they'll say iodine, because it's part of the structure of the thyroxine hormone. But that's only part of the structure. But for the thyroid gland to work, it needs all 90. Duh, right? And so a lot of times when they look at the T3, T4, the TSH, and all that kind of stuff, really what they're looking for is iodine levels. And so you can be perfect. They say, well, we don't know why you're having all these symptoms of
Well,
thyroid
just give you some
disease
iodine.
because, yeah, we give them iodine and nothing changes. Well, that's because it's a selenium deficiency.
That's interesting. Well, selenium is involved in the hormone as well.
Well,
It's part of the structure as well,
it's
no?
part of the structure, but it actually is even equally importantly, it's part of the process of making the hormone. Okay? And as is copper and everything else. And then, of course, it's necessary for the health of your muscles. Muscular dystrophy is caused. Muscular dystrophy is a selenium deficiency.
Wow.
Now, a fellow by the name of Marvin Ropp and I, who grew up Amish, and he went in and became a Navy SEAL. Going from the Amish world to Navy SEAL, he comes back after 20 years in the SEALs. He goes back, a worldly man now, and he sees all these kids dying of muscular dystrophy in the Amish community. And so I go there and I say, well, this is what we see in calves that have muscular dystrophy or white muscle disease. And it's a selenium deficiency. So we went to Purdue University, and sure enough, in Indiana, wherever these kids are that have muscular dystrophy, there's always a selenium deficiency in the soil. So we started giving them the 90 essential nutrients, giving them extra selenium, and the muscular dystrophy goes away in a couple of weeks. Even if they've been in wheelchairs for years, we get them out of the wheelchairs and go play basketball. So we send all this information to Jerry Lewis. This is a gospel true story now. We send all this information to Jerry Lewis.
He must
5
have
years.
loved it.
He went crazy, positive. He loves it.
Yeah.
I said, now, Jerry, we're not asking for money. We already know the cause, prevention, and cure of muscular dystrophy in kids. We already know this. We just think it's appropriate that we offer to you the opportunity to make the news release because you're the
Mr.
guy.
Muscular dystrophy.
They're Jerry's kids,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So you're the obvious guy to make the news release if you want to. If you say no, we'll be happy, but at least my conscience is okay because I've given you the opportunity. He gets excited. He takes it to the medical committee in the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation. They fire Jerry Lewis. That's why Jerry Lewis has not been on the telethon for the last 2 years.
Oh, that's an amazing story.
And they sent him on a cruise. They actually bought him a ticket to say, we have a non-disclosure contract with you, Jerry. You can lose everything. We'll sue you for everything if you bring this up. And so we're sending you on a cruise. Go enjoy yourself.
And don't bring it up again.
We want you away from here when we're having this telethon this year because everybody's going to say, well, where's Jerry? For the last 2 years, it's over with.
That's a great story.
And so they fired Jerry Lewis because we discovered the cause, prevention, cure of, and I knew what it was for a long time, but until Marvin Ropp came back from being a Navy SEAL and introduced me to the Amish community, I didn't have access to those kids.
So selenium for muscular dystrophy. But I think your point's well taken that you have to have the entire mighty 90. These things are specific for disease states, but the entire milieu of the body has to be nutriated.
That's right, because everything kind of works together.
Yeah.
And if you have to have the metabolism to be able to repair yourself. You have to have the metabolism to operate just in life. And so to think you can cherry pick one nutrient, this is one of the bad things the medical system does.
Allopathic nutrition, I call it.
Yes.
Where you just use a nutrient like it's one kind of drug, one kind of disease.
Exactly, using a nutrient as a drug.
Yeah.
Instead of using the whole. I liken it to Grandma's recipe for an angel food cake, for instance. And she dies and she leaves her secret recipe to her favorite granddaughter, right? But the granddaughter doesn't like some of the ingredients. She said, I really don't like eggs because of cholesterol theory, right?
It's not going to be the same cake.
And so you leave the eggs out, and all you get is a angel food crepe.
Yeah.
You don't get angel food cake.
Right. Because all the ingredients work together.
Exactly.
And the mighty 90 works together the same way.
Yeah.
All right, so there's so many things I want to talk about, but I don't think any conversation with Dr. Wallach would be complete without talking about colloidal minerals.
Okay.
Okay. And first of all, there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding. People don't really understand what exactly a colloidal mineral is, and I think it makes sense that there be misunderstandings. You know, Albert Einstein and some of the great physicists, they studied colloidal solutions, colloidal suspensions. They were so fascinated with how these things work and how they interact with the water and the electrical nature of all that. Why don't you tell folks, first of all, how you discovered the power of colloidal minerals, and exactly what are colloidal minerals and why are they so special and so effective?
Okay, well, thank you, Pharmacist Ben. Back again in the late 80s, I was working with some of the alternative cancer hospitals in Mexico. They invited me to come do some things with them. And that's a long story how I got there, but that's another time. But at any rate, one of the problems I had was getting all the nutrients that people needed, because most people wouldn't eat calf pellets and dog food and things like that, right?
Right.
And so I had to find a way, because in human supplies, it was very difficult to get things. And so I needed a source of some really weird trace elements and rare earths, okay, like gallium,
right.
ytterbium, yttrium, neodymium, praseodymium.
Which the body needs.
You get disease if you don't
right.
have them. Most doctors, you ask them about those
ytterbium deficiencies,
rare earth, europium.
Yeah,
you ask them about those things, doctors look at you like a deer in the headlight. They've never heard of them, right? And so I was looking for those things. Well, here at one of these alternative cancer hospitals is a little gallon glass jug, and it says, take an ounce of this with every meal. And I tasted, woo, it kind of shrunk wrap your lips over your teeth. It was very tart.
Right, minerals.
Yep. And so I said, what is this? He said, well, it's this stuff that comes out of the mountains, and it has all these different minerals in it. So I took it to Dr. Schrouser, University of California. I said, analyze it. And it had 77 minerals in it, including all these really weird trace minerals and rare earths. Exactly what I was looking for. But that was back in 1985. I had been looking for something, but it was so expensive.
It would have all the you were looking for something that would have all those trace minerals.
And the rare earths. And if we were to put it together one by one by one, it would cost $1,000 an hour to take that stuff, right? And so it's too expensive. So here's a natural source, and it had everything in there in optimal amounts. I mean, I really got excited because I said, now I've got the tool that I can bring this to the general public, right?
Wow.
Well, a colloid is actually a mineral that's in suspension rather than in solution.
So it doesn't dissolve, it hangs.
It hangs in there. Now, how does that do that? You've heard of Brownian movement, right? Well, all these particles are the same charge, and so they repel each other. And so they stay in suspension by their own energy because they're repelling each other like little magnets.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
And
so this is a highly electrically charged solution.
That's right.
It's like a magnetic solution.
But they're all the same charge.
Right.
That's the secret. They're all the same charge.
Right. That's how they're repelling.
Yeah, that's right. Brownian movement, and they knew about that for a long time, but you're talking about one nutrient, one mineral, but here's one with 77 minerals in there.
Wow.
And there's this, it's almost like a liquid alloy of 77 minerals.
Wow.
And for instance, if you take a solution, a liter of a solution, you can maximize whatever you can get in there. You get 985 or 989 milligrams. That's all you can get into a solution. There's only so much room in between the water molecules. Now in the suspension, I can get 36,000 milligrams.
How do you do that?
Kidneys, right? I can get 36,000 milligrams. Well, when you taste that, that'll shred the enamel off your teeth. It's so acid. So I had to cut it down to 19,000 milligrams. But now we're getting up into the dosage rates, so you don't have to drink 7 gallons a day. I had to concentrate it down. I mean, all these little mechanical factors I had to deal with, I had to concentrate it enough to where a human being could take a couple ounces and get enough. Nobody's going to drink 7 gallons a day to get enough, right?
But these are highly concentrated suspensions.
Yes, but I had to concentrate them more.
Wow.
Right, see? And so this was perfect for me because I could get 19,000 milligrams in a liter, I could get 600 milligrams in an ounce.
That's amazing.
That's amazing, right?
That's amazing.
And so, but in a solution, I could only get 30 milligrams.
And so what accounts for that difference then?
Well, in a suspension, it doesn't matter how much room there is between the water molecules because these guys are in there keeping each other in suspension all the time. They never settle out.
They're self-suspending.
They're self-suspending. They never settle out.
Wow.
It's a perpetual motion machine.
So you're actually drinking an electrical energy. You're drinking magnetism.
Of sorts, yeah.
So you're drinking a magnetic solution. So
yes.
Would you say that the effect on the body is it amps up the magnetic energy of the
body?
Well,
if you look at the heart, for instance, which is an electrical thing,
right.
When people start getting palpitations, they are having an electrical conduction problem. So you give them selenium in a colloidal form, problem solved.
Wow.
Okay, and so it's that simple. But at any rate, then I was able to make liquids. Of course, I think I'm considered the father of liquid supplementation at that level. And the initial product we had was just what we called plant minerals.
I remember that.
Yeah, 77 plant minerals, which contain all 60 essential minerals in optimal amounts, 1 ounce per 100 pounds of body weight. And most people are deficient in minerals, so just taking those minerals made an enormous positive difference in people's lives.
Cholesterol.
Okay.
I want to talk about cholesterol. Statin drugs, hundreds of millions of prescriptions are filled for statin drugs every year. Everybody's terrified of cholesterol. Somebody here was asking about eating eggs, and people don't want to eat eggs. They don't want to eat the yolk in eggs. And There's so much misunderstandings about cholesterol. Please tell our listeners, tell the viewers a little bit about, first of all, what cholesterol is, why it's so important, and then how you can make sure that you have enough cholesterol in your body using dietary strategies.
Well, first of all, cholesterol is an important part of our human structure. Every cell wall is like 30% cholesterol.
Right.
Okay. Every cell wall, if the trillions and trillions of cells in your body, every one of them, 30% or more, in some cases 60% of the cell wall is cholesterol.
Nerves. So you can't make cells without the stuff.
That's right. And cells won't work without it. They die without it. And then 75% of your brain weight, the white matter of your brain, the myelin, is cholesterol. Okay? If you don't have enough cholesterol, guess what you get? Alzheimer's disease. It's a physician-caused disease for lowering our cholesterol. Then you can't make sex hormones. Testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and adrenal hormones are all steroid hormones. 95% by weight is cholesterol. Vitamin D3 is
cholesterol.
7-hydroxy-25 cholesterol, right? Right.
It's cortisol, stress hormone.
Exactly. So
aldosterone,
adrenal hormones, all these things are cholesterol. So you don't have enough cholesterol, you get erectile dysfunction, you get menopause, you get adrenal exhaustion, you get Alzheimer's disease.
All of it.
All of it.
How can this beautiful chemical, this beautiful molecule be so demonized in our culture? It's amazing to me.
Well, here's why. Because, again, biologists don't know anything about chemistry, right? Doctors don't know anything about nutrition.
Right.
So that's a maxim. Well, in 1971, after having done 20,000 autopsies, I wrote a paper which compared the plugged arteries in vegans versus plugged arteries in meat eaters. Looking at this cholesterol theory, right?
So the vegans are eating grains?
Well, grains, vegetables, fruits, and nuts. Right. And guess who had the worst clogged arteries?
Vegans. Right.
Because of
There's
the
no
oils.
cholesterol in meat.
Well, there's a little bit of cholesterol in the scarring of the arteries, and that's why in their brains they thought it was a cholesterol. But there was turbulence in there, and the body's putting cholesterol in there trying to smooth it out. You know, like these nonstick pans. The body's response was to throw cholesterol at it, trying to smooth out the turbulence.
Now, when people eat meat, is there cholesterol in steak? Is there actually cholesterol molecule, even after it's cooked and after it's processed?
As long as you don't burn it. Okay, now, but here's the beauty of that study. 1971, 20,000 autopsies, they come out, and this is published in an international Danish pathology journal, Active Pathologica, translated into 6 languages. This went around. Millions of doctors, millions of pathologists all over the world read this. Now, they all laughed at me because they were saying, well, Wallach must be sniffing glue because cholesterol causes heart disease. Well, guess what? Where were vegans getting their cholesterol? They're not eating meat. They're not eating eggs.
They're making it.
The oils in the grains are oxidizing because they were stored improperly. And then they stir fry in extra, extra, extra virgin olive oil. You turn those oils into trans fatty acids and heterocyclic amines, right?
Right.
By heating them. They eat a lot of salad dressings.
So where's the cholesterol coming from?
From the body makes a little bit as a sort of, again, a
protective device?
Protective device, kind of like this nonstick pan again, right? Okay, but it came from your own body making it.
So it's upregulating the body's manufacturing system of cholesterol.
Yeah, but it's infinitesimally small. It wasn't even a factor. But that's the only strange thing that was in there, right? And so they picked that out for some reason. And they came up with these statin drugs to lower cholesterol. Well, here comes now, 41 years later, the FDA in Science News just a couple of weeks ago came out and said, uh-oh, Houston, we have a problem. They put out new warnings on statin drugs saying
diabetes.
Increases your risk of diabetes by 50%, increases your risk of Alzheimer's disease by 100%.
That's amazing.
If you go on a cholesterol-restricted diet and you take cholesterol-lowering drugs, statin drugs, you will get Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
Okay? And I said that in 1971, and they all laughed at me.
You need cholesterol to make neurons.
That's right.
Make brain
you must
cells.
eat eggs. The egg is a perfect food. You start out with a chick on that egg the size of a lentil, as thick as a piece of paper, with the diameter of a lentil, right? I mean, we're talking about 3 or 4 millimeters in diameter, 1/10 of a millimeter thick. That's the chick, and there's the yolk and the white. That's all food for the chick. In 21 days of incubation, you have a chick with a beating heart and lungs and legs and all the muscles and feathers and skin and eyes and brain.
All from that little egg.
All from that little egg. And so it's a perfect food.
Yeah. Where else can you get? What other foods would you recommend?
Eat the chicken skin, throw the chicken away. Just don't eat it fried, okay? You can eat
Fish skin?
yeah, you get a little bit of cholesterol actually in salmon, in the fat underneath the salmon skin. You can get it from red meat. You can get it from lard and butter. You get a little bit of cholesterol in butter.
What do you think about, what nutrients would you use with your cholesterol? Any particular vitamin E or essential fatty acids?
Well, sure, you have to take the 90 essential nutrients, which includes vitamin E, and we're talking about selenium and vitamin A. All these things are antioxidants in their own right. Now, vitamin A, why did they call it vitamin A? Because it was the first one discovered. When it was discovered over 4,000 years ago by the Egyptians, they could get rid of night blindness, which we know is caused by vitamin A deficiency, by giving people extracts of liver. They'd squeeze liver, get the juice out of the liver, give it to you, and night blindness would go away.
Vitamin A is a stupendously important vitamin as well. How about for the immune system, vitamin A for the immune system?
Of course, because it's an antioxidant.
Yeah.
It helps protect you from free radicals and also helps your immune system fight against organisms, transmitted organisms like bacteria and viruses and fungus and yeast and all kinds of stuff. So every one of the 90 essential nutrients is important. They're called essential nutrients. They're not optional nutrients.
The word essential, that's what that means. Now, real quick, I wonder if you could touch upon the digestive system. We got 80 million Americans with digestive problems. 1 out of 3 Americans is dealing with some kind of digestive issue. When we know with liquid nutrients you can bypass a lot of that, but what would you recommend for folks in terms of not essential nutrients necessarily, but accessory nutrients that people can use to support digestive wellness?
Okay, well, first of all, the old theory used to be you are what you eat, right?
Right.
That's not right.
It's what you absorb.
You are what you absorb. Very good. You are what you absorb.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so when you pick the right number, when you said 30% of Americans have a terrible digestive problem, Mayo Clinic came out in 2009 and said 30% of Americans have gluten intolerance. Now, there's some communities that eat a lot of grains because they're, for whatever reason,
cheap.
It's cheap. It's stored for years in case there's some imminent disaster, right? We're talking about the Amish, the Mennonites, the Hutterites, the Mormons, the Seventh-day Adventists are all vegetarians. They eat a lot of grains. They have 80% gluten intolerance. Now, what that does is you lose the villi in your small intestines, and you get celiac disease, you get diverticulitis, you get irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease,
And
you get ulcerative colitis.
And you don't absorb your nutrients.
You lose 85% ability to absorb them. So what's 15% of nothing?
Nothing.
Very little.
Yeah.
Right? And so the problem we have now is all these people now are being told to eat whole grains. And so there's all this gluten intolerance happening, so people are not absorbing what little nutrition there might be naturally in the food.
Right.
And they're not supplementing. And so you have to get off of gluten. You have to supplement properly. And then 99% of these problems go away. When you're talking about diseases, for instance, like you have a baby born with muscular dystrophy, cystic fibrosis, cleft palate, they're born deaf, and all this kind of stuff. Invariably, the mother will be gluten intolerant because what little nutrients are in the food, she can't absorb them very efficiently.
So she's got a malnourished fetus.
She's got a malnourished fetus.
Wow.
It's not genetic.
Oh, yeah, it's malnourishment.
It's malnourishment. But here's the thing that gives doctors a little bit of hope that their theory is correct. Gluten intolerance is passed on through cord blood or breast milk. It's not genetic, but the glutens are passed on
the allergens.
Well, they're not even allergens. It's not an allergy. It's an intolerance.
So in other words, the proteins, the peptides are passed through in the milk, and the baby becomes intolerant to it as well.
Yes, exactly. Now here's the deal. Nobody's allergic to poison ivy because there's no pollen involved. Nobody eats it for salads. But everybody is intolerant of it. Now you rub poison ivy on yourself, you don't get an allergic reaction.
You don't get an immune reaction.
You have a contact dermatitis.
Right. Bakers will get it too. There's baker's dermatitis.
Well, yeah, exactly the same thing.
Same idea.
And so what you do is you get these people on gluten-free diets. Their asthma goes away in 2 weeks.
It's amazing.
And you have a woman who's had 3 kids in a row with muscular dystrophy. You put her on a gluten-free diet. You give her the 90 essential nutrients appropriate for her body weight. You throw in some extra selenium. She'll never have another child with muscular dystrophy. She can have 10 more kids, but none of them will have muscular dystrophy because it's not genetic.
That's amazing. Now, are there other things in grains aside from gluten? Gluten gets all the press, but there's other things as well. Are there other proteins, other peptides?
Well, sure, there are allergens. You can get a wheat allergy, but it's not necessary to be gluten intolerant.
Is grain a problematic food, in your opinion?
Yes, it is, because human beings were never designed to eat grain.
Yeah.
Now, the animals that do very well with grain are
ruminants. They have extra stomachs.
They have 4 stomachs.
Yeah. So if we had 4 stomachs, maybe we'd be able to eat that.
Well, we'd be able to eat grain.
Yeah.
We have a single stomach, and we don't have the capacity to handle grains like an antelope and a buffalo, a buffalo and the horses and cattle and sheep and goats and all these animals with 4 stomachs. When you look around the world, other than one-celled animals, the 4-stomach animals are the most universal form. They're everywhere, on every continent, every place. There's more species of ruminant animals than there are elephants.
So our digestive system just isn't designed to eat these kinds of things.
That's right.
Isn't that interesting? You know about Jared Diamond, right? Mm-hmm. He wrote a paper called Agriculture was the worst thing that ever happened to us in human history, something along those lines. But the idea being that we're not supposed to be eating these kinds of foods.
Germs, guns, and...
guns, germs, and steel. Yeah. But the idea is that we're not supposed to be eating these kinds of foods. What about gluten-free? What about gluten-free flours and gluten-free grains? What's your take on those?
Well, gluten-free grains are what? We're talking about millet.
Yeah.
Buckwheat, which is not wheat.
Quinoa.
Quinoa, and you're looking at rice. You ever hear of the old macrobiotic diet?
I don't know a lot about it.
Well, during the 60s, the hippies, all those flower children were running around eating the macrobiotic diet, which was essentially a German cleansing diet that was made from brown rice and steamed vegetables. It was only supposed to be done for 2 weeks, but they felt good on this stuff, right? And so they added a little bit of fish to it, maybe some eggs, so you get enough protein so you could live on it forever. And, I mean, these people were solving problems like eczema, asthma, were all going away on this macrobiotic diet. And they said, it's the magic of the brown rice. No. It's because they gave up wheat.
That's
okay?
Interesting.
And there was this Michio Kuchi who popularized, he's a Korean guy who popularized the macrobiotic diet. He had terminal pulmonary tuberculosis. I mean, 90% of his lungs were filled up with tubercle abscesses, and he was beyond hope, according to the doctors, right? He got on the macrobiotic diet, and 3 months later, he's gluten-free, he's cured.
Everybody wants to lose weight. Obesity is ridiculous.
We're the number 1 obese nation in the world.
We're the starving obese. It's crazy what's out there. By 2030, they estimate 50%. Not overweight, Doc, obese. Okay, so how can we use the Mighty 90 to lose some weight, especially now with Christmas and Thanksgiving? How can folks use the Mighty 90 to lose some weight?
Well, again, Pharmacist Ben, we're the number 1 obese nation in the world. We spend more money for health care than all the nations of the world combined, yet we're the number 1 obese nation in the world. What's going on here? Well, what that tells you, you don't have to be too bright to stand back and say, how could we be the number 1 obese nation in the world? What does it say about the level of understanding of obesity by our doctors and our government? They know nothing. Otherwise, we'd be number 204, right? We'd be the thinnest people on earth and the healthiest. But we're number 1 obesity because they know nothing about obesity. In their theory, you know what I'm saying? In their theory, obesity is caused from lack of exercise and a disease of excess. You're eating too much.
Right.
Because they think that we're like an oven. They think if you eat carbohydrates at only 4.5
calories in, calories out.
Exactly, 4.5 calories per gram as opposed to 9 calories per gram for fat. You can't buy fat. It's fat-free, low-fat, no fat.
But we're still fat.
We're still obese. Okay, and that's because it is not a disease of excess and it's not a disease of lack of exercise. When you're obese or even overweight, it's a disease of deficiency. You're deficient in a couple of minerals.
So obesity is actually a deficiency disease?
Yes. Okay. Obesity deficiency is a disease of a couple of minerals.
All right.
And the symptom of the deficiency of these couple of minerals is the munchies.
So you can cure the munchies by using these?
Oh, yeah. But any mineral deficiency, not vitamin, you can be deficient in all the vitamins you want and you won't gain weight.
It's mineral deficiency.
It's a mineral deficiency. In horses, it's called cribbing. They chew on the fence.
Right. How about pica? Is that what pica is?
Pica.
Pica, yeah.
And little kids will eat dirt and stuff like that.
Lead paint.
Yep. That's because of mineral deficiency. Only.
So when people have the munchies, their body is the body's wisdom is let's go get some minerals, and they're trying to find these minerals.
You're driving you to eat something to find the minerals.
Yeah. So dieting isn't even hard. Once you get the nutrients that you need.
I wouldn't even use that term.
Yeah.
What I would do is talk about portion control as opposed to dieting.
Right.
Because you don't even have to think about portion control because when the pica and the munchies goes away, portion control is just sort of self-regulating, right?
But they're adding years to their life. They're decreasing the likelihood of arthritis and degenerative diseases and cancer, God forbid.
Cancer, heart disease.
All of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Obesity goes away very quickly. But when you say, right now they're predicting 50% obesity by the year 2030, that tells you that they don't know what to do. Because if they knew what to do, they'd say, okay, right now we're 36% obesity.
But it'll be
Here's
less.
what we do.
Yeah.
And by 2030, it's going to be 20%.
They don't know what to do.
They have no earthly
Yeah.
idea because their theory has failed them.
Yeah.
And they cannot believe it's a disease of deficiency. In their little pea brains, they cannot believe that it's a disease of deficiency. Okay, now, the spin-off of that, of course, they say that people who are obese, they have a higher rate of
Diabetes.
Yep. That's his sort of cousin disease here.
Right.
They run together, but not all the time. You can have people who are obese don't have diabetes, but they do tend to run together. And we've known for 70 years that diabetes, type 2 diabetes, which makes up 98% of the diabetic population, is a simple mineral deficiency disease again. It's not genetic in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It is not genetic in any way, shape, or form, for emphasis, right?
Right.
It is a simple mineral deficiency disease. And I have to tell you this story. You'll appreciate this, pharmacist man. There's a fellow out there by the name of Jerry Murphy. He's an owner of one of the largest, I think it's the third largest medical laboratory in America. He services 7,000 hospitals and tens of thousands of doctors' private offices every day with his medical laboratory. This guy's got 3
It's
PhDs.
like a diagnostic
Oh, diagnostic laboratories. Yeah, they take specimens and
Yeah.
send them to the laboratory. They send the results back to the doctor, right? I mean, this guy has 3 literally, he has 3 PhDs.
He doesn't have
in
diabetes.
medical. Oh, yeah. He had terrible brittle diabetes. I mean, his blood sugar is off the chart, even with injectable insulin.
And he
His
knows about all this stuff.
Well, he has access to the finest endocrinologists, the cutting edge of research on what you do for diabetes, all the drugs. I mean, he knows everything about diabetes the medical system knows. Well, a mutual friend introduces us. And because I've been talking about diabetes for 25, 30 years, right? And so I said, well, yes, sir, I can help you. I can get your A1C hemoglobin down below 5 within a couple of months. I can get your blood sugar down below 100 without medication. You'll be an ex-diabetic. And he looks at me like, oh, yeah, right.
Right.
He says, who are you? So I had to introduce myself a little bit. He said, well, I don't believe you. So tell you what, give me a test. I mean, give it a try. You have everything to gain, nothing to lose. You're not being successful at what you're doing. He said, okay, I'll give you 90 days, Wallach. He says, you can get my A1C hemoglobin down from 8.9 down below 5 within 90 days. You can get my blood sugar consistently down below 100 without medication within 90 days. I'll be your best friend.
Wow.
I'll fly around my jet plane. I will show up spontaneous at meetings you won't even know. I'll just appear and give my testimony. I will brag about you. I will put every one of my employees on your program, and I'll stop all my insurance.
And you knew you could do it. You knew you
I was
could.
self-insure. Well, I've been doing it every day for 35 years. And so he says, but I'll tell you what, if you fail, if in 90 days you haven't gotten rid of my diabetes, I will hire somebody whose only job is to go around every place where you're going to give a talk and tell everybody in the newspapers and be interviewed and tell everybody what a quack you are.
Right.
I said, okay, Jerry, let's do it. Let's go for it. And he was kind of shocked that I didn't want to negotiate, right, and equivocate. Right. I said, let's do it. Well, to make a long story short, in 2 months' time, following exactly what I told him to do, and he was very good. He was impeccable in doing exactly what I told him. His A1C hemoglobin dropped from 8.9 down to 4.3, and his blood sugar went down to 62 without medication.
That's amazing. And you know what? It's the way you put it and the way you frame it, it's easy. It's easy. And I want everybody to understand this is easy. If you have diabetes, if you have a blood sugar problem, and you've been told you're going to be on insulin the rest of your life and you're going to be on drugs the rest of your life, this is easy because it's a metabolic problem. And once you change your body's chemistry, it can't help but follow.
G'day, I'm Jamel with Dr. Joel Wallach, who's been nominated for Nobel Prize for Medicine, has a book in the Smithsonian, and was awarded at the United Nations. Doc, your life's work, you are the naturopathic doctor. You're travelling around the world. What can we expect?
Well, what I'm going to do is teach people how to prevent as many as 900 different diseases, how to reverse as many as 900 different diseases, and by saving themselves and saving their families, will save the world.
Wow. And I'm an independent distributor, he's a doctor. So my job is to get that information out to you and refer to the best doctor, I think, on the planet, Dr. Joel Wallach. So get in touch with us now, and we'll show you how. And you can create a great income too for your friends and your family, and you can really get some people healthy. Thank you.